Welcome to Conversations with Terry McBride. This first video, The Hell I Can't, is number one in a series I'm calling The Joy and Wonder of Choice. There are 10 videos. The format of this one's a little different because after I did all 10 of them, I decided I wanted to redo this one. As you watch these videos, have fun. Explore the ideas as they're presented and just notice if you find something that you think you might be able to use to improve the quality of your life. Because that's the purpose of these videos. To inspire you. To remind you that you are magnificent and you can learn how to create the life that you want. When I was 23, I had a spinal fusion. Somehow during surgery, my spine got infected with the E. coli bacteria. E. coli is a bad bug. It ate holes in my colon. It spread throughout my pelvic area and my abdomen. The only way to get E. coli out of the spine back then was to cut it out. So after my original orthopedic surgeon did 4 debridements, cutting out procedures, and they didn't work, he transferred me to the University of Washington Medical Center. He said, they got all the experts you need there under one roof. So I went in there and became a celebrity right away because I had the worst case of osteomyelitis of the spine they had ever seen. My doctor became this visiting professor from England. He was supposed to be the number 3 orthopedic surgeon in the whole world. The other professors didn't talk like that, but the interns and residents did. He told me, he said, look, I don't want to be blindsided when I go in there, because when I go in to cut out this infection, I want to know where it is. So they did tests for 2 weeks. Finally, they got some good x-rays of the extent of the infection, and he came in that afternoon with his resident and several interns. And when he came in that afternoon, he was different. He didn't seem as standoffish. And he said, well, we've got some really good x-rays, but it shows that the extent of this infection is more involved than we imagined. So I'm going to have some meetings tomorrow with some other specialists, and then after these meetings we'll come in and tell you what we're going to do in this big debridement, cutting out procedure. Okay, so they left. When my wife came a couple hours later, the first thing she asked me was, what has happened? I said, what do you mean? And she said, when I came down the hall, the nurses wouldn't look at me. That's when I knew that something was going on here that was much bigger than I might have imagined. It's real involved. If you want to get the whole dynamics of what happened in those first few days at the University of Washington Hospital, you need to read my book. Anyway, that evening, not early in the evening, 5 o'clock came and went, 6 o'clock came and went. Where are they? They're still in their meeting. Finally, 8:15, the door to my private room opened up, and in walked 6 surgeons. 6. And if it's good news, there's usually one person to tell you. And if it's bad news, they tell you by committee. The guy in the lead was this orthopedic surgeon from England. Behind him was the head of the Department of General Surgery. Behind him was the head of the Department of Infectious Disease. Behind them, the 3 top residents in those departments, and then the head nurse. And this is what they said. This infection is no longer just in your spine. It's spread into your abdomen. It's throughout your colon. We're pretty sure it's eaten holes in your colon, so the germs are moving back and forth. And it appears to have followed both your sciatic nerves into your thighs. And we need to stop this now. So tomorrow we're going to do the most extensive debridement we've ever attempted. First, the general surgeons are going to open you from the front. They're going to start as low as they can go down in your pelvic area. They're going to come up around your belly button and go up towards your sternum. We're going to open all of that up. We're going to reach in there and cut out all the infected tissue, separate your organs out of the way. And when we get down to the spine, the orthopedic surgeons will chisel and scrape the infection out of your spine. When we're done with that, we're going to roll you over, and the orthopedic surgeons are going to start from the back. They're going to start as low as they can go down between your buttocks. We're going to come up almost to mid-back. We're going to open all that up, cut out all of the infected tissue, chisel and scrape the infection out of your spine. And when we're done with that, 2 teams of surgeons are going to start about at your belt line and open up your buttocks and follow your sciatic nerves into your thighs. And when we're done with that, we're going to tip you up on the end and come in between your scrotum and your rectum. He got about 5 minutes into that thing, and I just started shaking because I knew what they were going to do. They were going to gut me like a dead deer. When he got done, he sat down on a chair and pulled it up next to my bed. And he reached out and took my hand. And that's when I knew I was in trouble, because this guy was not a touchy-feely doctor. He said, "Son, I know how radical this must seem, but we've got to do this. We've got to stop this now. When we're done with the debridement, the drains, and the antibiotics that we do have, we're pretty sure we can stop it from spreading anymore. The bad news is we're pretty sure you're going to lose the use of your left leg through nerve damage." And then he just looked at me. And I just looked at him. And he just looked at me. And finally I figured it must be my turn to say something. And I heard come out of my own mouth, "That's okay. That's okay. If we've got to do this, let's just get it over with." But even as I heard those words come out of my own mouth, I thought, what has happened to me? What has happened that in just 1 year I would so willingly give up the use of my left leg? And then he reached up with his other hand and clamped mine between his, and he said, "We have to do this, son. There is also a risk that you may lose some of the mobility of your right leg. There's a chance you're going to lose the control of your bowels and your bladder. And there's a big chance you could end up sexually impotent." That was just before my 24th birthday. Sometimes when I tell this story, people want to badmouth doctors. I want to tell you, as that man was talking to me, I was looking at the other doctors, and some of them had tears in their eyes. These were not negative men. They came in to say, "We've reached the limits of our science, and here's the reality that you need to face." After they left, the resident who had been with me for the 2 weeks of tests, because we'd become friends. I mean, he sat there with my wife, and they just held me. They didn't say anything. They just held me until I quit shaking. And then he looked at me and he said, "Terry, we don't know what's going to happen. We've never seen anything like this. But what we do know is you cannot expect to come out of this health challenge whole." The name of my book is The Hell I Can't. I invite you, as you watch these videos, to get underneath the ideas and concepts being presented and just notice if you can find something that you can use to improve the quality of your life. Sometimes people ask me, "Why did you call your book The Hell I Can't?" And the reason for that is when all these experts came in and said, "This is the reality that you must face," I didn't know if I could win. I didn't know if I could get well. But what I knew was I finally had to stand and say no to the box they were trying to put me in. And the best I could come up with was, the hell I can't. I had that infection for 11 years. They did 27 major surgical procedures on my spine and abdomen in an attempt to cut that infection out of my body. As I mentioned, it ate holes in my colon. They pulled the lower end of my colon, so they pulled my colon out and clipped it and sewed it to my tummy, and I went to the bathroom in a plastic bag. They called it a colostomy, and they said I would have it for the rest of my life. They did things to my body a person's not supposed to recover from. For those of you watching this who have a significant health challenge, what I want you to know is that I know what it's like to be engulfed with disease. I know what it's like to be surrounded by people, well-meaning people, telling me I needed to face reality. I know what it's like to have no hope. When I was in the hospital for about the 14th surgery, they sent me to see a psychiatrist, a loving, caring man. And when I came into his office, he created a safe space. I didn't know that's what he was doing, or I wouldn't have felt so safe. And after several minutes of talking, he looked at me and he said, "Son, it's time to take off your rose-colored glasses." By then, I already knew what the doctor's opinion were about me beating this thing. And when he said that, this little voice inside of me said, "Get out." But I'd learned early, don't make doctors mad. They'll get even with you. Anyway, I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "I want to read you something." I'd hurt my back on the job, so state industrial insurance was paying for everything. And after I had a few surgeries, the insurance company started writing letters to the doctor saying, "When are you going to fix this kid?" And the doctors wrote letters back. And this psychiatrist looked at me and he said, "I want to read you something." And it was a letter written about 3 months before that from the head of the Department of Orthopedic Surgery. And the letter said, "Dear Sirs, as you may not be aware, Mr. McBride's condition is not curable. He will have chronic osteomyelitis for the balance of his life. And because of the severity of the infection and the invasiveness of the procedures needed to keep these drains open, unless Mr. McBride is extremely fortunate, he will be left with significant permanent disability." And this loving, caring man looked up from that letter and said, "Son, there's a chance you're going to spend the rest of your life in a wheelchair. There's a chance you're going to have significant, permanent disability. And if you come work with me, I can assist you to accept those limitations with dignity." And I said, "I don't want to learn how to live in a body that doesn't work with dignity. I don't want to go to the bathroom in a plastic bag. I'm reading these books." And he said, "Son, you're living in a dream world." And I said, "No, these books say there's a part of me that's not sick. These books, some of them say that there's a part of me that's not afraid. And what they talk about is that if you can get in touch with that aspect of you that's not sick, that's not afraid, from that aspect of you, you might be able to create reality rather than face reality." And he looked at me and he said, "Terry, that's your ego talking." We argued. We fought. And I cursed. And every time I cursed, he'd say, "Look at your anger." It was a very heated discussion. I talk about it in my book. But it gave me some cornerstones that assisted me to make the choices I needed to make at that time. In that conversation, he kept asking me, "Who do you think you are?" When I told him I didn't want to believe like he believed, he didn't ask me, "What books are you reading?" He didn't say, "What teachers are you listening to?" He just challenged that, why wouldn't I believe like him? He said, "Who do you think you are?" And then at one point he said, even if there were these principles and disciplines you could use, you're not disciplined enough to use them. Because I was abusing pain medication. I spent a lot of time just vegging out on TV. And when I finally got up and walked out of his office, what I realized was that if I was really going to make the difference in my life that I wanted to make, I needed to get on track and start using these principles on a daily basis. And that's what these videos are about. These videos are about me discovering various aspects of me that allowed me to create health where there seemed to be only disease. And I didn't start with, I'm going to create health. I started with, I'm going to use these principles so I won't cry myself to sleep every night. If you are willing to spend 10 or 15 minutes a day applying the ideas and concepts talked about in these videos, you will learn two things. One, you will learn how powerful you are. And number two, you will learn that you can create belief. You can create consciousness. At the taping of this video, I'm 70 years old. I don't have a bad back. I'm not recovering from a bad back. I have no pain. I have no limitation. I don't have a colostomy anymore. Even after I healed the infection, it took me several years to heal the pain and the problems with adhesions and the problems with all scarring in the colon. Whatever is going on in your life, do not give up. You're powerful. You're magnificent, even if you don't know that yet. Get involved with the concepts of choice and explore how you might be able to develop a system to stay on track, to create your life, to be the life you always dream about. Have fun watching these videos. And remember, you are more powerful than you ever imagined. I'm Terry McBride. I send you love. I send you joy. And I send you power.